Our lecturer today is Joycelyn Elders, 15th Surgeon General of the United States. She's Professor Emeritus of Pediatrics, Division of Endocrinology, I said it right that time, at the University of Arkansas Medical Sciences, Arkansas Children's Hospital in Little Rock, Arkansas. She's a distinguished professor of the School of Public Health at that university. There's a chair in her name in sexuality education in medical schools at the University of Minnesota. A native of Shaw, Arkansas, Dr. Elders is the oldest of 8 children. At the age of 15, she received a scholarship from the United Methodist Church to attend Philander Smith College in Little Rock, Arkansas. Upon graduation at age 18, she entered the U.S. Army as a first lieutenant and received training as a physical therapist. Dr. Elders attended the University of Arkansas Medical School on the GI Bill. After graduation in 1960, she interned at the University of Minnesota Hospital in Minneapolis and did a pediatric residency and an endocrinology fellowship at the University of Arkansas Medical Center in Little Rock. She received the position of full professorship after her fellowship and board certification in 1976. She also holds a Master of Science degree in biochemistry. Dr. Elders joined the faculty at University of Arkansas Medical School as a professor of pediatrics and received board certification as a pediatric endocrinologist in 1978. Based on her studies of growth in children and the treatment of hormone-related illnesses, she has written many articles for medical research publications. She was appointed director of the Arkansas Department of Health in October of 1987. While serving as director, she was elected president of the Association of State and Territorial Health Officers. Dr. Elders was nominated as Surgeon General of the U.S. Public Health Service by President Clinton on July 1st, 1993, confirmed by the Senate September 7th, and sworn in on September 8th. Dr. Elders served in this post until January 1995 and subsequently returned to teaching until her retirement in June of 1998. She's the recipient of awards such as the Arkansas Democrats Woman of the Year, the National Governors Association Distinguished Service Award, the American Medical Association's Dr. Nathan Davis Award, the Lily Doyle Humanitarian Award, and the National Coalition of 100 Black Women's Candace Award for Health Science. Dr. Elders has also received multiple honorary doctorate of medical sciences degrees and honorary doctorate of letters degrees. As an author and co-author of hundreds of professional publications in the area of pediatrics, endocrinology, and public health, and as a national and international speaker, Dr. Elders is a strong advocate for children's health, quality patient care, and health safety. Dr. Elders is married to Oliver Elders, also known as Coach, and they have 2 sons, Eric and Kevin. Will you join with me in welcoming Dr. Elders?
Good afternoon. Sound armed. Wasn't that choir beautiful? Heavens, just beautiful young people just singing. I was just awed. Thank you very much for giving up your Sunday afternoon to come over and join us. I want to thank you very much for inviting me to be a part of your Black History Month celebration. It means a lot to be here in your beautiful corner of the world. And I know that there are not many Black people in San Clemente, so you want to ask, well, why are you celebrating? Why would you be celebrating Black History Month? Well, I think that there are several reasons why I think we all have to celebrate Black History Month, because it's a part of not just Black people's history, It's a part of all of our history. A part of our greatness as a country is our diversity. We're the most diverse country in the world. We speak more than 28 different languages is our great country. And so we're very diverse, but we all need to know about each other. Our original motto that was put on the Great Seal of the United States of America, E pluribus unum, out of many, one. I think that states it so well who we are. There are many different people who come together to this country to form one. While we're diverse in many ways, many states, many religions, many colors, many origins, together we're one country. The national observance of Black history is about knowing our history, our whole history as a country, which is not always taught in the history books in our classrooms. Black history is a part of our history that belongs to all of us and should not be kept a secret. We can observe and remember all of our history and claim it as our own. Perhaps Christopher Atticus was the first dock worker of both African American and Native American descent. And he was the first person killed in the Boston Massacre, and thus the first American killed in the American Revolution. And just as the Revolution, Black people have been here for all the wars, for all the art, for all the music, for many of the buildings, much of the preaching, much of the lawyering, researching, inventing, and everything else. Michelle Obama has said numerous times, she says, I wake up every morning in a house built by slaves. Yet the White House that was built by Black people, both free and enslaved people, labeled to build Wall Street, the U.S. Capitol. Enslaved people built Monticello, Thomas Jefferson's home, Mount Vernon, George Washington's home, as well as many other landmarks in the United States. Many railroads were built by Asian and by Black people. We tend to think of Black people struggling away in the cotton fields only, the way I did and my family did. However, enslaved Black people toiled in the North in factories, in building projects, in homes, institutions, and pretty much everywhere else work was to be done. Following the Civil War, and every Black person, every family was given 40 acres and a mule. I'm a part of that history. Many things that was promised by Abraham Lincoln were changed quickly after his death and after the short period of Reconstruction. With the election of Johnson, the old status quo was effectively restored with no more Black voting and Blacks running for office in government. Not many Black businesses allowed, and few educational opportunities. A few schools were allowed for higher Black education, such as the Tuskegee Institute and a few others. Hundreds of Rosenwald schools all throughout the South were built for Black children by Jewish progressives, headed by Julius Rosenwald. I attended one myself. Without that, the little two-room schoolhouse, it is unlikely that I would be here this afternoon. I graduated from high school when I was 15, and at age 18, graduated from Philander Smith College. Philander Smith is a historically black United Methodist College in Little Rock, Arkansas, and I want you to know it's still thriving and doing well today. I was able to go to college there only because of a scholarship from the United Methodist Women. So were it not for Methodists, it is unlikely that I would be here this afternoon. Just as many black families after the Civil War, mine became sharecroppers. The sharecropping system replaced slavery across the South. Effectively, it was a way to have free labor, just as with slavery. Families farmed for landowners who gave them a small percentage of the share of the profit. And I say families because in order to survive, sharecroppers required everybody in the family to work. So the farmers made out nicely. They had the general store, which they sold to all the farmers and usually sold it on credit. And it was difficult to raise or save any money. During that difficult time, we all began, and I want you to say, I began my life as a colored person. We started out, we were colored. Then I became a Negro. Later, I became African American. Now people usually say, I'm black. But because I know from the beginning, there are some people that are still going back and wanting to be colored again. I'm not on that list. Of course, all black people in this country are not from Africa. Most of you know that. So we cannot technically say African American, although we do. Some of our black citizens came from Australia, Sri Lanka, other Pacific islands, India, and other parts of the world. However, people from Africa, many of whom are descendants of Africans, taken against their will, sometimes sold into slavery by other Africans, brought to this country to work, and are predominant members of whom we call black. Some were free citizens. But whether you were black or not, the story about black people in the United States is a part of our history because you're here and a part of this country, even though, as Michelle Obama says, you spend your life trying to get away from us. We're still here. We're still Americans, and we're still many come together as one. We claim one another's history as part of our own because without all of us, our history, then there would be no us. If we don't repeat the story, future generations will forget, and we'll lose our history. A people without a history is not a people at all. Rather, they're individuals. We Americans want to be a people. We can remember the hopes and dreams of all the people who came before us to hold the country and to continue the hopes and dreams and safe for our children. Let me tell you how we came about getting Black History Month. In 1915, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, who received the first doctorate from Harvard University, they met went to a major meeting in Chicago, Illinois. Well, you have to remember to travel across the country during those times took weeks. So you couldn't go to a meeting to stay for a day or two. It took you 2 or 3 weeks to get there. You had to travel by wagon, and we didn't get a plane and fly across the country like we do now. And so they went to this meeting, and there were about 1,000 other people there, and And they were really looking at what all had been done, accomplished by African Americans since the dilution of slavery 50 years before. Inspired, this was a 3-week meeting. So inspired by that 3-week meeting, Woodson decided to form an organization to promote the scientific study of black life and history before them. Among other things, this group decided upon a date to celebrate Black history. So why is February Black History Month? February was chosen as Black History Month. It wasn't black. It didn't start out as Black History Month. I think may have been Black History Week. But it started out is because it was between the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass, which was February 12th and February 14th. And many blacks were already celebrating Abraham Lincoln's birthday and Frederick Douglass' birthday, and so they felt that this would be a good time to have Black History Week because they were already celebrating this. So he believed that this was a good time. Well, it was 1976. It was started out as a week, and this was just to do a remembrance. And then after they decided that this was such a good idea, and later on they would have it every year. Then a theme was presented every year. There's a theme for Black History Month. The theme for Black History Month this year is Black History and the Vote, African American and the Vote. They usually made the theme correspond or coincide kind of with what was going on in the United States, whether they were celebrating art or music or education or teachers or whatever. But they've had every year since 1926. There's been a migration or immigration. They've had a theme for each and every year. So I feel that it's gone on for years. We've had many votes, and many laws have been passed. And just because they bring up laws, sometimes it took years. They'd come up 3 or 4 times, or even more than that. Civil Rights Acts, they didn't get passed. And Voting Rights Acts, they didn't get passed. But I want you to know that eventually they were finally put together and passed. And Ms. Obama has said, every brick in the road toward freedom helps civil rights and helps the rights toward freedom. So we've made that. So even though we didn't get it all done at the same time, there have been a lot of progress. The reason why this year they wanted to deal with the Voting Rights Act is because it's so important. In 1957, only 20% of African Americans were registered to vote. And then many of those that were registered to vote, they would go to vote and couldn't vote. And I remember my dad. We lived in a 3-room leaky shack, and you couldn't keep up with anything. We didn't have any place to store anything. But I want you to know, he kept up with his poll tax because it was so important to him to have that poll tax to be able to vote. And I think that the voting right and the ability to vote is so important. Despite the majority of the population in many counties and congressional districts in the South, racist vote rules and laws had effectively robbed most black people in those states from their voting rights since the late 19th century until early part of the 20th century. Some counties even gave tests to it before the people could vote, you know. And some counties even had cards that required blacks to read Chinese. My friend Barbara says that that happened in her hometown. We didn't have much money in my family. My father we had almost no money. But each year, he always paid his poll tax so that he could vote. Of course, attacks on black voters, even today, are persistent. But it's important that we get them all registered so that they can vote and they become educated so they can vote. It was during much of the Civil Rights Act during 1956 that I was a freshman in medical school. And we was talking about, people often ask me, so, well, Dr. Elders, what were you doing during the Voting Rights Act? Well, I often tell them I was trying to learn to be a doctor, and I was sitting in medical school. So I think we all have to have, we can't all be out there marching in the street. But I want you to know I support every one of those people that was out there marching, standing up, fighting for my right to be in medical school, for my right to do many of the things that I was doing, and I was very grateful for that. One of the things that I skipped over and I meant to remember, Dr. Kilgore bought me this little green book. Most of you have never seen it. You've probably never heard of it. One of the things that, even though after black people could travel a little, you knew we couldn't eat in restaurants, we couldn't stay in hotels and all. Well, we had this is the green book, the Negro Motorist book. And this is a list of places where you could stay in different states as you travel, places where you could eat, places where you could sleep. And, you don't even think about that. But when you can't stop and get a drink of water or sandwich or anything, it's important to have this little green book to know where you can stay. And do you know, even to this day, my family, we still often when we travel, we pack a car. We fry our chicken and get our stuff all packed. Even though we may have the money to buy it, we have plenty of places to stop and eat, places to get water. But once you've gotten a habit, my children know, but they don't do it. But I think it's our little compass on where we could go. When we've done something for so long, it's hard to break the habit of doing something like that. Whereas I appreciate all the sacrifices and risk that so many people took during those times, and I want you to know that I know that they weren't all black people. There were a lot of white people that took great risk. I heard about your pastor's, a member of his family, driving her little Volkswagen to Mississippi to participate in voter registration. And many of you have heard about the students and people that was killed, during that time. You've heard, but again, that's all a part of our history. Lack of education, lack of health care, family planning, immunizations, poor drinking water, correctable disabilities, severe poverty, lack of opportunity prevented many black people from being able to take their rightful place in society. So we've come a long way, We made lots of progress, but we've got a long way to go to have equality and equity. And I want you to know, as I told the group this morning, just because you make it equal does not mean that it's equitable. You know, if you've already got everything and you only need just a little bit more, and you take somebody who has nothing, you can give them this little bit more that you're giving this person, and it still won't make it equitable. If you want, but so I think that if we're going to make a difference, we've got to start thinking about equality and what that means to make a real difference. When I started medical school, I wasn't even allowed to eat in the dining room. The black students weren't allowed to eat in the dining room with the white students. When they integrated the dining rooms, I'll never forget the student who came and sat down. I was sitting at the table, or he came, and I came and sat down at the table, and he picked up his tray and left. Some people ask me, well, weren't you upset? I said, well, I want you to know I didn't come to medical school to eat with white folks. I came to medical school to learn how to be a doctor. So, well, I wasn't eating with white folks before I came to medical school. You know, I was in Arkansas, and everything was separate. So we didn't know that. So I'm just saying things were very, very different. I went through medical school, and when I was a senior medical student, I remember one of my professors came, and she was really being very complimentary, and I appreciated what she was saying. She says, Dr. Elders, I wasn't quite a doctor then, I was a senior medical student. She says, you know, you have as much education as most white people. I swallowed 3 times, and I said, Dr. Dodge, I said, I have more education than most white people. Well, but you know, we were talking about, you know, generally. But I mean, as I said, and you know, she realized what she just said. But I'm just saying that these are some of the indignities that you went through. But you know, at the time, as far as I was concerned, it was important to me to get through medical school and to make a difference. When we were graduating from medical school, there was 3 black medical students, myself and 2 young men in my class. And because they was having the big senior celebration and dance, dinner, you know, everything at the Little Rock Country Club. They called us into the office, the 3 of us into the office, offered us $30 each as reparation because the white country club said that we couldn't come. Yet everybody, every person that served, cooked, everything, cleaned the yard at that country club was black. So, but we couldn't come there. But you know, you can say, well, weren't you upset? Why be upset? This was not this wasn't happening any place else in Arkansas. So, you know, it's not that. But I'm just saying these are some of the things. I'm just telling you about some of the things that was going on. And was going. But so, you know, we suffered a lot of problems related to health care. I watched my brother, I told you this morning, who had ruptured appendix, and they put a tube in and sent him home because they couldn't hospitalize him in the white hospitals. Well, and I told you my brother became the first black veterinarian in Arkansas. So I had an aunt who died with meningitis. Yeah, so these were things that was happening, and so I'm very concerned, and I want to tell you what I want to tell you is that we've come a long way. We made a lot of progress, and I'm very proud of all of that. And I want to also tell you we've got a long way to go. You know, we can travel around the country, and I don't have to worry about frying my chicken and taking it with me. I don't have to worry about sleeping in a hotel. The other night I was in New York, and I was sleeping. Well, you know, you really, I want you to know that St. Clemente put just a gorgeous resort here. And I'm very overlooking the ocean, and I'm very pleased. See, they couldn't have thought about doing that in the 40s. But I was at the UN, and the room where I was in, I looked at the door, and I told them they were celebrating history makers. And so $1,500 a night. I told them, I said, listen, I don't know how to have my clothes and be in a room like this. I said, I take all my you have two bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, and you did the same thing here, but I'm afraid I won't be able to find my stuff. And a group had me in New York at the Waldorf Astoria, and I was on the top floor, and so I told them, I always know when I come to New York how long I'm going to stay. I said, if I'm going to stay overnight, they give me half the hotel. I said, but if I'm going to stay a week, they put me in the broom closet. So I'm just saying that these are some of the things that we know. Many things have changed, and we've come a long way, and we've done a lot, and as we move along. Some of the things, when we look back, almost jaw-dropping when I tell you about them, the inequities that exist. But I want you to know that they are not all gone. We've still got to change the status quo. You'll have to help us get from the place where the color of your skin matters. It must be the content of your character. Dr. Martin Luther King frequently said that injustices in healthcare and inequality in healthcare is the most unjust and the most inhumane. And I think we still know that we still have lots of injustices and inadequacies in healthcare. And then when I think of all the things that the Methodist Church has done to make a difference and to move us to where we are, that said to me that you cared. You had to have the courage, maybe not you, but some of the people before you, had to have the courage and had to take risk. That to say we care enough to share. And they stood up. That's how Philander Smith College was started as a school, because the United Methodist Woman wanted to make sure that they had a place in a school for colored girls. So these are the things that's happened. And I want to make sure I leave plenty of time for questions in case you have some, because I have loads of answers. But I want to leave you with a poem that Langston Hughes wrote back probably in the early 1925. It says, it's titled Mother to Son. This is a mother writing to her son, and I've told you about some of the conditions that was going on during that time. She says, well, son, I'll tell you, life for me ain't been no crystal stair. It's had tacks in it, and splinters, and boards torn up, and places with no carpet on the floor. Bare. But all the time, as I've been climbing on and reaching landings and turning corners, and sometimes going in the dark where there ain't been no light. So, boy, don't you turn back. Don't you sit down on the steps, 'cause you find it kind of hard. Don't you fall down now. For eyes are still going, honey. Eyes are still climbing. And life for me ain't been no crystal stair. And I want to tell you, thank you. Life for me ain't been no crystal stair. But I'll tell you that I've climbed as hard and as far as I could go. Had lots of help, lots of shoulders to stand on. Lots of people that cared. And I always promised myself that it's regardless to how far I got. And if I got to the ladder, top of the ladder, I would make sure that I sent the ladder back down for all the rest of those behind me. And I want to say, and I want to thank the United Methodist Church for all the times you've sent the ladder back down. And I want you to know we aren't there yet. And I want you to keep sending the ladder back down for the rest of us. Thank you very much.
You're up for some questions and
Yes,
answers. All
yes.
right. So
No,
now it's our
no,
opportunity. I'm going to come to you with the microphone so that we can all be heard. And it's wide open. She is game. So what would you like to ask Dr. Elders?
Yes.
Here I come.
Hi, my name is Viviana Moiso. I'm just wondering, did you ever envision a future like the one we're living in today when you were growing up? Like, did you ever believe that one day we would make as much progress as we have?
You know, it's hard for me to answer that. The reason why I say it's hard for me to answer that, because people used to ask me often, say, Dr. Elders, did you ever think that you would be the surgeon, you would be the Surgeon General of the United States? The reason why I said, no. The reason why I couldn't think about that, you have to be a doctor, but I had never seen a doctor until I was in college. And you could say, well, that's impossible. You see, we're talking about back in the 40s and 50s. We didn't have a television. The only radio we heard was from WLAC at Nashville, Tennessee. The only paper we got was the Grit. Once a week, once a month we came. So I'm saying, no, I didn't dream about it. The first time I saw a doctor was when I went to Philander Smith College. And whereas I said, we've come a very long way. We've got a long way to go. And whereas I've come a long way, I still know that there are still an awful lot of young people out there who do not have the same kind of opportunities of that beautiful a cappella choir that we listened to this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you for being here today, Dr. Elders. My name's Jeff Hylason. I would just like to ask you, what advice would you give to these young ladies, knowing what you've gone through over all these years?
The thing that I would like to give to these young ladies is that, first of all, see, when I started out, they didn't even think about women doctors. I was, now half the class in medical school is women. But when I was the only woman in my graduating class. There were 2 other black people. So that's how much things have changed. Now it hadn't changed very much for African American and black people. But 50% of most medical school classes in the country are women. And I'm proud about that. And I want you to know that there's absolutely nothing you can't do. Whatever it is, whatever you want to set your goal hard on, do that. One thing that I would tell you, many of the women doctors have often asked me about, and I said the thing you have to do is marry well. There's a young man over there that's had his hand up, Eric.
Hello, my name is Kay Zoltan. My question for you is, at what point in your education, I actually have 2 questions. At what point in your education/career did you decide to become a doctor? And number 2, we know about the prejudice you experience. At what point were you able to actually be a doctor to white folks, as you would put it?
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. She asked me, what point in my education did I decide to be a doctor? I was a sophomore in college before I ever saw a doctor. Dr. Edith Irby Jones, the first black, she happened to be a woman, but was the first black person that I had ever seen, first time I'd ever even seen a doctor. Because I told you about my brother's doctor, but I didn't go, I told you my daddy took my brother on the back of a mule. So I was a sophomore in college before I ever even saw a doctor. And from the minute I saw her, I thought she was the most beautiful woman, black woman, I'd ever seen in my whole life. And all I could think of from that day is I wanted to be just like her. But I couldn't dream of that before. I didn't even know to dream of that. So, but after that, all I could think. And then so what I wanted to do, whatever I had to do, I had to join the Army after I finished college because I was the oldest of 8 children. There was no way, and I had a scholarship. There was no way my parents could dream of sending me to medical school. And there was certainly no way that I could even think of going. But I joined the Army, was trained as a physical therapist, and used the GI Bill to go to medical school. I set my goal, so I guess you could say I was probably 18 or 19 when I decided, but I was in college when I decided that this was what I wanted to do, and I just spent the rest of my life trying to be just like Dr. Jones. And I want you to know, Dr. Jones she was president of the AMA. Dr. DeBakey, the world's most famous surgeon, wrote letters of recommendations and everything for her. And all. What I'm saying is, I've spent the rest of my life trying to be just like Dr. Jones.
Yes, my name is Mike Hyder, and I really have enjoyed your conversation today. I wonder, as Surgeon General, what was the biggest policy issue that you faced that you had challenges dealing with?
The greatest policy issues that I had challenges doing was related to sexuality. And you would think we're sexual beings from the day we're born until the day we die. but yet we can't talk about it. We don't want to talk about it. And I was working in the middle of the AIDS epidemic. And the United States, we had the highest teenage pregnancy rate in the industrialized world. The most common cause of poverty is children becoming parents before they become adults. And so the main reason I wanted to be Surgeon General was to see if I could do something about teenage pregnancy. And I traveled the United States, and I faced and got called everything. But I learned how to stand up to power. And I want you to know, we reduced our teenage pregnancy rate from that time I was Surgeon General to now 69%. And I'm proud about that. Again, I didn't do it alone. I twisted lots of arms, and I was called everything but Joycelyn Elders. But that's all right. I was trying to make a difference for the young women I cared about, who we had not educated them. They didn't understand the HER principle, H-E-R. We weren't honest. We pretended, kind of sex didn't exist. We told all, where babies came from, the storage spot. We didn't tell them one thing about sexuality. We did educate them. They weren't educated. We weren't honest. We didn't educate them. And then we didn't provide them the resources to prevent unplanned pregnancies. And then we finally start talking a little bit about it when we start talking about HIV/AIDS. Remember when we first started, we was wearing gloves, and in fact, the condom industry really made lots of money making rubber gloves because, and the plastic on toilet seats and everything during the AIDS, because of the AIDS, until we found out that, that wasn't how you only got AIDS through sexual contact primarily, and a few through breast milk, but most of us weren't breastfeeding anymore. So I'm just saying that it was. I think when most people ask about me around the world, that what they know and think about me is they call me the condom queen. But I tell people, I don't mind being the condom queen. I'd put the crown on my head and sleep in it if everybody who needed to use one would use it. So, you asked me, so I'm not sure Eric wanted me to talk about that in his church today, and I didn't plan to, but...
Good afternoon. My name is Kathy Hartle. Thank you so much for being here with us today. You've said many times today that we have a long way to go.
Yes.
What can we do as predominantly white people in San Clemente, California, to help us take steps to where we need to be?
Okay. The greatest cause of our problems, as far as I'm concerned, in our country, the greatest cause of inequality, the greatest cause of inequities, the greatest cause of all of our isms, racism, sexism, classism, culturalism, is related to ignorance. We've got to educate our people. So I think we need to really push education, and we have to start early. In San Clemente, you don't have to worry too much about that, but we've got to push. You got to push past San Clemente. We have to know, and we've known for years, the children are half as tall as they'll ever be by the time they're 3. They know half as much as they will ever know by the time they're 4. Hope, will, and drive has been determined by the time they're 5. And so we need to start and push early childhood education. See, reason why young children, especially poor children, it's just that many poor children of color, is if they start behind, they stay behind, and they never catch up. And so if we want to really make a difference, we need to get out and be pushing. We started one time pushing early childhood education when we said we couldn't afford it. But see, all of the young children of parents in this room get early childhood education. They don't have to go to a special school or anything like that. That's not. But the parents are reading to them or teaching them, whereas others turn on the TV or a little game and they don't ever read or interact. And so I'm just saying that I think, one thing is education. I think the most important thing that you have to do is push, and try, and you can twist and call and push early childhood education, comprehensive health education. We need to educate children to be healthy. And the other thing I think we need to push is health care. Health care should be a human right. Everybody should have access to health care. And I think that, and we have to have health education. We have to educate people to be healthy. You can't keep ignorant people healthy. And we've known that forever. So those are some of the things you can do, and that's something, so I guess what I'm saying, you can go out and get people registered to vote and begin to educate your legislators. But this is what we need. We need to make sure we educate our children, educate society, and we need to keep them healthy. We want all of our children to grow up healthy, educated, motivated, and to have hope for the future. So when they leave this beautiful city of San Clemente, leave this school, you're going to have a voice in their ear that can hear you long after you're gone, a vision in their eye that extends much farther than they can see, a scroll in their hand, which is a good education, and a song in their heart so they can survive when things get tough.
I think we can do two more. How's that? I'll come with you. Number one, number two.
I always answer young people, Eric. There is no limit to their questions.
Hi, my name is Celia, and I'm from Panama. I am an American citizen, and I attend the Episcopal Church of St. Clement's here in San Clemente. Thank you so much for educating us. I come from a family of educators. My uncle, my mom, my father, they were educators for the Department of Defense. My uncle was the superintendent of the Latin American schools in Panama. Experienced racism in Panama. When I saw my parents, the schools were separated. You had for blacks, and there were schools for whites. And it was painful to see what my parents went through. Very painful. We have no idea until you have experienced it. Hearing someone talk about it is one thing. Meeting others that have gone through it, it's very painful. And it needs to end. The disparity, the inequality, I never thought I would have seen it in this country until where we are today. It is shocking and heartbreaking. I do believe, see one, teach one. Learn do not be afraid to approach people and to talk to people. Education is the biggest thing that will save anyone. I did that with my kids. I made them go to the Irvine School District. We did not live in Irvine, but I forced them to go to Irvine School District and get that education. It is very important. Learn to write, to read, and not be afraid, as I said, to talk to another. But again, thank you for sharing.
Thank you for sharing.
Hi, I'm Mia Arnwine, and my question is, going through all of these hardships and learning all of these difficult lessons, how did you keep your eye on the prize, or how did you stay on your goal, or like what did you do, or what ways that like kept you motivated and kept you going?
You know, there is no slick answer to what you just asked me. But the thing that I would say that you do is, first of all, you set a goal. You know, if you set a goal for yourself and this is what you want, you know, it may not be not always a straight line. It may go up and down and around. But always set a goal and keep your eye on the prize. Don't ever give up. Never be afraid to ask for help. You know, if there are anybody out there who can help you, don't be afraid to ask for help. And don't forget all those people who helped you when you move to the top. Be persistent. I know you'll want to give up a few times, but that's all right. It's all right to give up. But be persistent and keep pushing toward the prize. And never fear failure. You're going to have a lot of failures, but never fear failure. Keep pushing on. And always be persistent. Always remember, there is nothing more valuable than persistence. You know, there are people who have PhDs, the smartest people in the world you know. But there are some of them that have fallen by the wayside. But persistence is something that you have to keep. So those are some of the things that I would suggest, you know, you just think about, and there's nothing magic about any of it. It's just a kind of something that you have to make a part of you and decide what it is you want to do and where it is you want to go and what you're willing to sacrifice to get there.
Looks like this is it.
Well, I am so happy you are here and hear your story. I didn't think in my lifetime I would see a woman of color in the position that you're in. But I am so thankful to God and all the people that helped you along the way to get there. I know it wasn't easy. I too have walked in your shoes. I never lived in the South, so I don't know what it feels like to be spat upon or denied toilet privileges or a drink of water. The indignities of that must be horrendous. To not be able to sit on a bus, and I didn't realize that I would have been part of that had I been born below the Mason-Dixon. But I did have compassion and understanding. That I started to realize that there was another type of racism that I personally found and saw among people of my peers. I'll try and make it short. In San Clemente, what can you do? There's a lot you can do. I'm one of the first biracial family to ever own a piece of property in this town. Ross Valderrain, hi Ross. Part of that generation, and we share some history. To have my daughter actually denied privilege to go to San Clemente High. I picketed it single-handedly, but the NAACP got some things done. Made it better for those who came after me. That's what all of us can do. See something, say something. If it's offensive, let people know that that is offensive. You don't treat another human being that way. We will all have comrades in arms. I'm biracial, so I have always had that. You have to overcome not only being female, but you have to overcome being female and brown or black skin. And so you're always thinking another strategy ahead of what people that don't have that obstacle have to face. So like I said, I commend you for being here and for sharing your story, because people, they're good people. And I always bring that up. I can fight both sides because I can't deny all of me. If I can't accept all of what I am, how can I love all of me? Then how can I love others?
Wonderful.
So you are such an inspiration, and keep on doing what you're doing to inspire the younger people in this world today, because they are going to have a lot to face, and we're still around to help them get there, because our computers will still be working when the lights go out.
You keep doing what you're doing.
I know that Dr. Elders will be glad to greet you and carry on conversations further. Right now, can we express our deep appreciation for her?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.